Several members of the House are said to be preparing a resolution to have Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, that's a Mueller ally, is the guy who appointed Mueller, impeached. This is, of course, being led by Representatives Mark Meadows of North Carolina and Jim Jordan of Ohio. Now, yesterday, we spoke with Newsmax's White House correspondent, John Gizzi. John is a D.C. institution, and he had only met with Representatives Jordan and Meadows about an hour before we spoke with John. Here's what he confirmed for us.
But I have a funny feeling we're going to hear about Rod Rosenstein a lot between now and the weekend.
30 seconds, John. Do they have, are the reports that articles of impeachment were drawn up, are those accurate?
Yes.
And that's remarkable. If you know John's reporting, John is typically very thorough. For him to just give us a simple yes was so definitive.
Typically, that man's always thorough.
He's
very good
thorough.
about dotting his I's, crossing his T's.
Yes.
But sometimes a distinct answer, just like yes, can be a thorough answer.
Oh, much more powerful.
In that particular case, I think it was.
Very powerful, and he was with Representatives Meadows and Jordan, two guys he knows that he deals with daily, working on the Hill, working in the White House. And Lindsey Franz a little bit earlier said, well, she's hearing that it might not gain traction. I don't know. I'm split on this 50-50.
Well, you want it to happen.
Look, I want it to happen, but I also think for Congress's credibility, Miranda, it needs to happen right now. Americans, I'm one of them, right? I mean, we leave the set. We're not doing the show. We're still Americans. We're voters. We're citizens. We look at this. It affects our lives. And I now roll my eyes during a congressional inquiry. I'm like, oh, you know, we saw it with Benghazi, with Peter Strzok, with Rosenstein. What's the point of congressional inquiries if there are no teeth? But you know who might know something about this? Our next guest. Let's bring in former federal prosecutor and the founder of Freedom March, Larry Klayman, our good friend. Larry, thanks for joining us. So what do you think is going to happen here? Do you think Meadows and Jordan are going to gain some traction in this move to impeach Rosenstein?
Let me say I agree with you about John Gizzi. I mean, he's a real expert. He's an excellent person. And I don't doubt that that's what they told him, that they have articles of impeachment. But you can draft articles of impeachment in half an hour. Doesn't take a lot of time. I sincerely doubt that anything's going to happen out of Congress. It hasn't happened in the last 30 to 40 years. They make these threats. We know that the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, is against it. Trey Gowdy, who talks out of both sides of his mouth, is against it. And it's not likely to happen. This is positioning to try to force documents to be produced. And the president needs to step in order that they be produced. But we can't depend on Congress. And that's why I've started citizens' grand juries, because we're going to indict Hillary Clinton. We're going to indict James Comey, Mueller, the rest of them. The American people need to rise up. Congress, it's a dog and pony show to get them reelected and to raise money. I hate to say that, but, you know, I've got 40 years of experience with this. What have they done?
Right.
Larry, on Tuesday, Robert Mueller's team submitted an immunity request for up to 5 witnesses they've asked to testify against Paul Manafort. Now, the identity of these potential witnesses remains sealed. Larry, what's your reaction to this?
Whether or not those people have anything important to say, we don't know. This could be positioning. It could be the fact that Mueller wants to look like he's got something to get Manafort to plead out. That's what he would like, to turn state's evidence, to flip, so to speak. So it's really hard to say what it is, but we do know one thing. Mueller is not the most honest guy in town. He's not a man of integrity, and he's trying to put the screws to Manafort. He's hoping that he'll squeal on Trump, and I think this is part of that effort.
Well, meanwhile, we want to talk about this Russian woman who's been accused of being a government agent. She is scheduled to be in court any moment from now.
Imminently, yeah.
Her name is Maria Butina. She's in her late 20s. This is a live look of the courtroom here. She was arrested Sunday and charged with acting as a government agent. The charge carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison. Butina is accused of operating at the direction of a high-level official of the Russian Central Bank, a bank that was recently sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury. However, Butina hasn't been charged with espionage or with being a member of a Russian intelligence service. Larry, first off, what's your take on Butina's indictment and the fact that she was posing as a gun rights activist? What are your thoughts on it?
Let me give you my gut reaction and put it in context of what's happened in the last few days with President Trump at his meeting with President Putin of Russia. I don't think the president should have backed off what he said. The intelligence community in this country has repeatedly lied to the American people. The FBI has been part of that for years. You can go back to the Gulf of Tonkin, getting us into the Vietnam War. You can get back to the assassination of Kennedy. And a lot of people think the CIA may have been involved in that in some way with Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby. You can talk about a lot of other things that they've not been truthful about, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. So I think this was positioning by Mueller and by the Justice Department, which is being controlled by this Rod Rosenstein character, the Deputy Attorney General, to really hurt Trump, to humiliate him, and to create this impression that somehow there's this great Russian collusion. Yes, Russia does have agents in this country. We have agents in their country. We do the same things to each other. Shame on us if we let it happen. But I have a gut feeling that this is contrived, and I have a gut feeling that it's trumped up, no pun intended, to get to the president. And that's what this Republican, Democrat, deep state is trying to do. They're trying to take down this president. Now they have ammunition because of something he said in Moscow, but I don't think he was wrong. You can't trust and agree with the intelligence here. And they've also been mass surveilling us for years. I have 2 court orders to stop that.
So you think it's okay for him to undermine the entire intelligence community and do so in such a public way?
I don't think he was undermining it. I think what he's trying to do is clean it up. It has been corrupt to the core. Look, it was just managed by John Brennan, okay, a former member of the Communist Party.
But Brennan's gone. He nominated Christopher Wray, who's now in charge.
But in fairness to Larry's point, Brennan was the guy who put all this intelligence together and made all these claims when he ran CIA. So I'm sorry, Larry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm saying that the deep state inside of these agencies still exists. They're still loyal to the Obama people. They're still loyal to the Republican establishment. They're a government into themselves. They're more powerful than the President of the United States. And frankly, the President made a great point. Where is the Democratic National Committee server? Why hasn't that been seized and analyzed? So frankly, I don't believe the intelligence agencies, and I don't believe people in Capitol Hill that slavishly follow what they say, because I'll tell you something, these intelligence agencies have goods. They have dirt on everybody. No one wants to take them on, because if you do, you'll be destroyed.
Larry, I want to shift gears here in a minute, but real quickly. So what you're saying, despite who the president nominated to be in charge of, like the FBI, Christopher Wray, or the CIA, which used to be Mike Pompeo, who is now a Secretary of State, you're saying no matter what, all of these organizations are tainted with, as you put it, the deep state. If that's the case, then what should happen now? How do you clean that up if you firmly believe that?
The president needs to take control. I know he's very preoccupied these days, but he needs to clean house and get new people in there at the top. Even Pompeo.
But he already did. With all due respect, he already did that.
Well, Pompeo is doing a good job, it appears, with Iran and perhaps with Russia, but he was in favor of this mass surveillance without probable cause, that you should be able to get anybody's phone messages, internet communications, text messages. That's outrageous. The American people can't live under that Orwellian state. That's what the judge in our 2 cases found. I don't like Pompeo in that regard. These people are part of this inside Washington establishment. And I'll tell you something, if things don't go well for them, they'll turn on the president. And we're seeing that already. Look at the people on Fox News that claim to have been conservative, that claim to have been in favor of this president, now stabbing him in the back. They couldn't wait. And that's why somebody needs to speak up. I don't think the president should have apologized at all.
Larry, I want to move on because we only have a couple minutes remaining. So Right Wing Watch cited an appearance that you made on InfoWars in which you called Special Counsel Robert Mueller a legal terrorist and a disciple of the devil. That's a pretty harsh analysis. Is it fair to say?
No, I think it is fair to say. Right Wing Watch, by the way, I get flattered when they cover me. It's like being called ugly by a frog. I mean, these people, they're part of the People for the American Way. They're vehement atheists. They hate conservatives, people of faith, libertarians, and others. So when they go after me, that's fine. But yes, Robert Mueller is a legal terrorist. And I said that figuratively with regard to the devil, but I do believe he's doing the devil's work, figuratively.
Well, Larry, what could be done about the Mueller probe? We see blatant bias on the part of Rosenstein, in my opinion. We see the stroke texts. We see the page texts. We see the Comey tweets today where he openly admits, all but admits, rather, that he was an operative of the Democratic Party weaponizing his agency. We see Brennan's tweets that leave no doubt that Brennan was weaponizing, leave no doubt to me anyway, again, my opinion, that Brennan was weaponizing CIA against candidate Trump. They were all in for Hillary.
And now Comey admitting he's a Democrat.
I just said Comey's tweet. What do you do? What do you do if you're Donald Trump? Because we have about a minute left, Larry. He still has establishment people around him. How does the message get through to this president that politics be damned, you've got to clean house for the survival of your presidency. The last minute to you.
Well, you keep talking and you keep educating. That's why I appreciate Newsmax so much and y'all, because we're able to say what we think. And that's what I love about this president. He says what he thinks, but he needs to wake up. Stop taking the advice of his lawyers to go along, to get along. It's not going to work. He's got to take action and not worry about the consequence. From our standpoint, I just formed a Justice League. I'm not exactly Superman, and we don't have any Gal Gadots. But on the other side of the coin, the American people need to rise up with citizens' grand juries, bring indictments, bring trials, bring convictions, bring sentencing, and citizens arrest peacefully and legally. We did that in the days leading up to our revolution and thereafter, particularly in the Old West. We, the American people, need to take charge of our own justice system because we don't have a justice system right now. In fact, it's worse than not having one. We have one that's working against the interests of the American people and our republic.
One word answer, if you can, Larry. Just want to clarify. You think it's more his lawyers that are advising him poorly, or some say, perhaps it's his own staff, or perhaps chief of staff. Your thought on that, just super quickly.
I think it's probably both. And I like Rudy Giuliani, but you know what? Rudy's in it for himself. I mean, he loves the publicity. And I don't think he's giving the president good advice here. He's telling him, well, I'm friends with Mueller, so this will all work out in the end.
Right.
No, this is not about friendship and being nice. It's about doing what you have to do.
Thank you so much, Larry Klayman. We're still standing by for Sarah Huckabee Sanders' press conference happening here at any moment, so you're going to want to stay with us.